Hello and welcome back to Quad Pod podcast. First month is almost complete. We didn't expect to get 5 episodes out in the time we have. It's been a real roller coaster and the team have been working really hard. Thank you to the researchers for what they've done. Famous last words in terms of we've been unbeaten since we started the podcast. Obviously Pompey beat us 2-0 away in front of 18,900, which is a massive amount of support, almost full house for a League One football team, and 1,600 Exeter fans there, and the applause and the respect for the 3 past Pompey fans was amazing and something that makes you really proud, football family wise. Trust meetings in a couple of weeks. We're not going to focus too much on that. Looking forward to get a copy of the finance report from the CEO. Great feedback from AFC Wimbledon fans for episode 4. Really thank you for your likes, your comments and your follows. That's gone down really well, and it really is a big thank you to Kevin for spending the time to actually do that interview. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. It's really, really important because it helps us with the part of the objectives is to make a little bit of money that we can share. The next episode is a part 1 of 2 with a famous player. So be prepared for that one when it drops. That'll be episode 6 and 7. But now for the man in India talking about a football club in America, I'm going to say just enjoy. Hi, welcome back to episode 4 on episode 5, should I say, season 1. As I said, we're going straight into the session because we normally do it in 3 parts, but this is going to be one big session. I'm really fascinated for our next guest. Now, he'll introduce himself a little bit, but a little background, he left Exeter when he was 16, I understand. He ended up in America. He's presently talking to me from India, where he's been on holiday or travelling, shall we say, for about, I think he said 16 months. He's a big Exeter City fan. He's into fan zone clubs. And a lot of Exeter fans may not realise that we have a connection with a team called FC Chattanooga. Now, he is also involved in FC Chattanooga. I'm going to introduce Peter Walcock. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? You well?
Doing good. Thank you, Al. Thanks for having me on here. Looking forward to it.
Right. So I think what we need to do, we need to position a little bit about Chattanooga, where it is, in the nicest way for those that don't know their American geography. So shoot me down if I've got this wrong. Little bit of history. Famous for the Chattanooga Choo Choo 1941 Glenn Miller song. For those who don't know, which is a big band song. Based in Tennessee, which I think is more famous for its music in Nashville. So that puts it on the, am I going to get this right, the east side, slightly in the center. Would that be about right?
Yeah, so Nashville's right in the middle of the state, and then Chattanooga's down in the sort of southeast corner. So we're about 2 hours away from Atlanta, which is directly south in Georgia. And then you got Memphis, where obviously the king Elvis was from. Memphis is all the way on the other end of the state, on the west side. But yeah, no, that's correct. Chattanooga. It's a great sounding name for a city. It's got Native American sort of roots. That's hence the sort of name sounding a little different. And then I had an interesting fact for you. I mean, it was where Coca-Cola was first bottled, where they put it in the actual glass bottles back in the day.
I almost said that, but I'm glad you said it because I've been looking on Wikipedia, and anybody who listens to these shows will know that when I spoke to our assistant manager, Wikipedia wasn't maybe as accurate because he got very rightly proud and competitive about the number of appearances that he'd made. So I'm glad you said that. Right now, FC Chattanooga, Fans Own Football Club, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. So yeah, and bit of context. I started moved to Chattanooga back in 2015. My wife Stephanie is originally from Chattanooga, so we moved back home for her. Obviously, it was a new place for me, and yeah, I'd heard about and been following the club, for a few years prior to moving there. And then as soon as I did move there, just sort of got in touch with the guys that started the club, and told them that I'm a huge football fan, and would love to get involved in the club, and I quickly did so. And then sort of roll on a few years and a few sort of conversations with various people involved in the club, and they'd always had in their mind to have a sort of supporter ownership model to the club, but actually it wasn't really legal back then in the States to do so. So it took a few years, bit of investigating, and then this platform emerged. They're called WeFunder, and there was a change in the 2012, to be specific, Jobs Act, which allowed unaccredited investors to actually purchase equity in sort of early stage private companies. Right. So the team at Chattanooga kind of got together and said, "Look, this is our opportunity. Let's use this platform, WeFunder, to sell actual shares in Chattanooga Football Club." So I was part of the team that sort of worked on that campaign, and coming from Exeter, being an Exeter fan and being a trust member myself, I was really keen to sort of speak to folks at Exeter and start building a bit of a partnership, I guess, and a bit of communication between the two clubs, and just learning a little bit more, in detail about what Exeter did and how they sort of got it started. And
just to shape some of that history, and again, shoot me down, right?
No, yeah,
because it's been quite impressive, I think. Formed in 2009, and it has now 3,000 owners, so similar to Exeter. But from what you've just talked about, I believe they received about $800,000 in investment. So what's that? That's about 450,000, 500,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I believe in the early stages, the crowds were around about 1,500. And I believe we're now near 10, 12,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been an interesting rise. I mean, as you said, the club started in 2009, and it was a group of eight friends in Chattanooga that they all had a shared interest sort of in soccer, but soccer wasn't football. I'm probably gonna say soccer a lot. I've been turned to that term.
For this interview, you're fine. Don't worry.
So soccer was not a big sport in the Southeast, in the US. But these guys, were very passionate about the sport, and sort of Chattanooga being a sort of mid-sized city, didn't have a soccer team, so they got together and started the club, and it was incredible. I mean, for their very first game, and I think this is when they realized they were onto something. That very first game, they had around 1,500 people turn up in the rain, and they really felt like, oh, okay, yeah, I think the community is going to buy into this, and they've been, had been an amateur club up until sort of 2019 when they switched into sort of a professional club. So up until then, being an amateur club, you only played during the summer months. So it was about a 3 to 4 month season in the summer. But we were drawing crowds of like you said, I mean, started off smaller, they got bigger, and then we had a playoff system. So that meant when we had deep playoff runs, we would get some really sizable crowds. I mean, the best crowd that they ever had, and I'm pretty sure it was, I want to say it was 2015 actually, when they reached the national final for the league that they were in, played the New York Cosmos sort of B team, and we smashed attendance records for amateur soccer. So we sold out, pretty much sold out the stadium. There was about 18,000 fans at the game that night, and that was kind of coincided when I just moved there to Chattanooga. So I couldn't quite believe it, that there was so much support behind this team at the amateur level. And then, it's been, the rest is history, and the club then turned professional and has been doing very well and playing a lot longer seasons now.
So how does that work? Because I know that just before we started the interview, certainly we're not the MLS. It's like,
correct.
I get that. I understand that. And a little shout out for Seattle Sounders, because I'm a little bit of Sounders fan. I've got one of their shirts. Long story. How do you fit the pyramid? Or is it is it like a national league, League One, a League Two, league, championship? How does it sort of fit at the moment?
Yeah, so Chattanooga fits in kind of the equivalent of like the third tier of US soccer. So at the top you have the MLS, and then underneath that, tier 2, you actually have 2 leagues. You have the USL Championship, it's called, and then you also have MLS has now sort of brought in a new sort of development type league where a lot of the MLS Division 2 clubs sit in. There's a few other independent sort of leagues, teams in there as well. And then you have the third tier where, again, there's 2 leagues. There's the USL, what they call League One. And then you have the league that Chattanooga Football Club sits in, which is called NISA, which is a National Independent Soccer Association. So more driven towards independent clubs versus, the sort of more franchise model that, people are probably more aware of, which also sort of fit the mold at a lot of the other American sports. So in episode 2, we had Mac, our man in Japan, who's FC Tokyo fan, and he explained a little bit about how that works in terms of, what's the logistics of the league? Is it, the differences like Exeter Carlisle? Is it Exeter Birmingham? People travel. How what does it look like? Yeah, it's interesting. It keeps sort of evolving every year because it is a nationwide league. But you've got teams way over in California. You've got teams like Detroit, for example, were in the league up until last year. They've now moved to a different league. You had a couple of teams up on in New York, and then a couple of teams south as well. So it's geographically spread all over. They try and group games and coordinate games so that if you are flying from Tennessee out to California, you're possibly playing 2 games out there to save some of your sort of travel time. And it's been a league format, but then with a sort of playoff at the end. So depending on your position in the league, you then play a playoff to determine the sort of the champion at the end of the league. It's very, I guess, very different, from what we're used to in the UK. I think probably the most frustrating thing is that, you have no movement out of your league. You're confined to your league. Obviously there is no promotion relegation structure, open system in the US, which, again, for someone like me, and also for, I think for many other people that support Chattanooga as well as other independent clubs in the US, it's extremely frustrating, because, you're really locked into that league. And then if you want to play at a higher level, the costs and the expense involved into buying into one of those leagues is very, very expensive. So it's, again, not very conducive to a supporter ownership model. You're looking then at individuals that, with serious sort of net worth to be able to play in those higher leagues, which is really, it's a real shame. It's very disappointing because, like you said, Chattanooga has been started in 2009, has had a very fantastic history, and it's been very competitive. It's had fantastic support. And if it was in the UK, for example, I would like to think we would be at the League One, sort of championship level by now, if promotion relegation existed. So But we're not. We're stuck in where we are and not really moving anywhere fast, which is a shame.
And I was going to come on to this later. The World Cup is in North America in 3.5 4 years. Are you seeing a lot more clubs coming up, and that you think maybe in 20 years it might be a different landscape?
Yeah, no, I mean it's incredible. I mean, I think in the sort of 6 years that I've been in Chattanooga, I've really noticed the growth of the sport, there's a ton of clubs at the amateur level. So in the league below what we used to play in when we were an amateur team, there was over 100 countries nationwide, 100 teams nationwide playing in those amateur summer leagues, and then there was other rival, similar sort of leagues as well. So there's a real breadth of amateur, I guess, soccer being played, and then you also have the very successful college system in the US, where a lot of players, go through that college system where they obviously get well looked after at colleges, combine that with education, and then, that's an extremely competitive sort of leagues within the college system. Then, with the aims that a lot of players want to then go and play pro at the MLS or sort of USL championship level. And then I feel like the grassroots side of the game is massive. Just talking about Chattanooga, and a big part of my job when I worked there was on the foundation side. We had a community initiatives, and then just one of the community initiatives that I was responsible for, we were reaching well over 1,000 up to 2,000 children a year through an after-school soccer program. That's just one example. And then there's lots of clubs doing very similar work, across the country. So there's a huge pool of sort of grassroots kids that are starting to really get into the sport. And it's now just, trying to feed that through to the sort of the top level. But I think the World Cup's incredibly exciting for the country. And I just think there's going to be a ton of things that are going to start to ramp up. And any World Cup, I think, inspires, your younger generations coming through, and I think that's going to have a big impact in Chattanooga, across the country. I mean, Atlanta, for example, will be hosting games. That's not far from Chattanooga, so there's definitely going to be an opportunity for people locally to go and see World Cup games. But I think, and I know the team at Chattanooga FC are working on events and things around the World Cup that, they'll hope to capitalize on as well. So that work is starting now, even though it's, obviously a few years out.
Here's one for an event. How about we see whether we could connect Exeter City to come over? Well, the Brazil history, of course. So
exactly. Yes,
that'll be there's one to think of. So and 4 years. Let's dare to dream. I'm sure that we could try and sort that out. So let's see. That's
always been a bit of a pipe dream for me. I'd love to make something like that happen. And vice versa. At some point, I would love to see Chattanooga go over, to the UK and and play Exeter. I think that would be incredible. That there's a lot of other similar clubs in the UK with the supporter ownership model, right? So it would be fun. It would be fun if there was a way. And I know Wrexham, for example, I know that's not supporter owned, but they're in the spotlight a lot at the moment. But they're coming over to play a few sort of similar sort of level sort of teams in the US next year. So
here's a cheeky one, because by the time this goes out, right, the episode before this is actually a discussion with AFC Wimbledon and one of their directors, and we've done a cheeky head-to-head discussion related to the 20 years. So that this will follow on very nicely from that one. And obviously, if you need help with the connections, then there's, for example, yes, Wrexham are obviously well known because of Disney. We all know that. But there's FC United of Manchester. There are other clubs out there. So it could be a little tour of, supporter-owned clubs.
No, I think there's definitely something there. And when we did the campaign, the supporter ownership campaign back in 2018, excuse me, I reached out to quite a few supporter-owned clubs to see if there would be any interest in them buying a share in Chattanooga, because we had people actually from 15 different countries buy shares in the club, because some people just found it, some of it was, obviously through connections and such, people who had a tie to the city. But, I reached out to Nick Hawker at the Exeter City Supporters Trust, and I said to him, look, would Exeter be interested in buying a share? And he actually, he took it to the board, and everyone sort of voted on it. And then, in sort of response to that, we became members of or Chattanooga Football Club became members of the Supporters Trust, and we still to this day, we have an annual pledge to the Exeter City Supporters Trust. So that was really awesome. I was very touched that Nick sort of took that to everyone and said, look, the Exeter City Supporters Trust want to support the Chattanooga effort, and we actually came out with a very special jersey that year, with all of the names of every single owner on the jersey that the players wore. And the Exeter City Supporters Trust is proudly on that jersey. So, and I believe I sent one to Nick, and I think it's in the Exeter City Club Museum at St. James's Park. So yeah,
that's a very well kept secret. So
yes.
We should do more to share those sort of things. So a bit of a jokey question, right? You say there's 3,000 shares. What's the share? I know I'm being base money. What's it worth roughly? Is it a profitable club? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, and this is a tricky one for me to speak on, just given that I'm currently not an employee of Chattanooga Football Club. So I guess you would say I'm maybe on hiatus. I've been traveling, like you said, for the last 17 months. And I'm still very, very close with everyone there. And my wife and I, are looking to return somewhat soon. But yeah, I mean, the shares were of value. There were $129 when they were, when we sold them for people to purchase. And if ever, the club was to get sold, which I don't think will ever happen, there is potentially a return, right? If you would.
We don't want to worry about that.
We don't want to see that happen. But yeah, I mean, I think like any club globally, right? Your goal is to break even at best, right?
Cool.
It was an incredible injection into the club when we did it. The campaign and the club is also supported by some fantastic individuals as well, that support the club. But they're in a very good position right now and doing extremely well, again, for the level that they're at as well, punching well above their weight, I would say.
I looked on the website, and I definitely would concur with your commentary there. Is there any communication between the clubs in terms of expertise as well? Because I can see commercially, it's for that. Well, please have a look at the website for those that are listening. It looks very impressive from a distance. So, is there any share of knowledge
between Exeter and Chattanooga? You mean? No, I don't think they've had any direct communication too recently. I think if anything, I was probably there, the most direct link, I guess, between the two of us. I hadn't spoken to Nick. I think was my main point of contact, and I hadn't spoken to him in a while. But there definitely was, I think, when we were starting the campaign and sort of talking about the sort of setup and the structure, and it's very different as well, just legally what we could and couldn't do compared to the sort of trust. And Nick was really, really helpful at giving some great advice. Also put us in touch with other clubs as well. So it was very, very helpful. In the beginning, and I mean, it's definitely one of those that we would love to see, keep the sort of dialogue between us going. And we'll hope to. This is a great example, right? That this podcast,
indeed,
you reaching out to us, was awesome. I know that the club were really touched that you reached out and then connected me, in with it, and yeah, hopefully we do keep the dialogue going between the two clubs.
Well, the corporate team are happy to come on a podcast, or if there is a US one for the team, then we'll come on a show. Just let me know, and we'll arrange that and organise that. That'd be cool. So, a little bit more about the club. Yeah, playing. I would say it's almost Coventry colours, but with tartan scarves. Is that right?
yeah. The traditional color is different, maybe some different variations on blue, and different shades of blue, I guess. But blue is a pretty core, home strip sort of color that the club's always had. We have one of the founders of the club, incredible guy. His name is Paul Rustand, and he's always done the design for the jersey, and he's always tweaked it and changed it every year. So there's always been something different. They've gone a little left field sometimes. They came out one year with a full gold version of the kit for a season, which personally I didn't love. Some people absolutely loved it. I was on the side of I'm way more traditional, but so they're not afraid to do something a little bit different. But yeah, we've I would say blue is a pretty mainstream identificational color for the club.
Do you have 3 strips, or is it just 2 strips?
Yeah, no, that's always have an away jersey, and then we've done a few third strips. Probably one of the most interesting ones was a couple of years ago with VfL Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga. So we have an official partnership with them, which we've had for a very long time, and that ties back to Volkswagen. So in Chattanooga, we have a Volkswagen plant, which was huge for the city when that was started and built. And they and then given VfL Wolfsburg's connection, owned and run by basically Volkswagen in Germany. They soccer is in their blood, so they have been a supporter of the team from pretty much the beginning. With the CFC's always proudly worn the VW crest on the front of the jersey. But yeah, a couple of years ago we did a special away jersey with to sort of celebrate our partnership with VfL Wolfsburg, where we put the VfL Wolfsburg logo on the middle of the Chattanooga Football Club away jersey, which it looked incredible, and it was kind of it did some rounds on Twitter, and it generated quite a bit of interest. People, because it was quite unusual. Not many clubs have done that, where they've actually put another club's logo on the middle of their jersey. And yeah, it generated some really good buzz on both sides of the pond, But yeah, really, really special, unique sort of relationship that we have with them, and that's been awesome. And yeah, we're trying desperately, like you said about Exeter coming to play, we've been desperately trying to get them to come over to Chattanooga and also play as well. So hopefully that'll happen one time.
Well, maybe we do a tournament. So
exactly.
So and I'm going to put out a challenge to Exeter City's commercial and marketing team. Right, maybe we have a third strip, because we changed the colour, right, as a homage to SC Chattanooga. I think that would be quite nice. So and I can see the tartan scarves taken off. So look, I'm conscious of time. It's been absolutely great talking to you. I'd love to get you back on and talk about the World Cup and the build-up over the next few years, if we can do that. But before we go, I'd like to ask you some stuff around Exeter City, if I may. Who was the manager of Exeter at the time you were 16 and just leaving Pennsylvania Road, as you put it?
I was trying to think about this when you asked me before.
Was it Neil McNabb or Paul Tisdale or?
No, it was before Paul. I want to say who's up at Liverpool now as one of the.
Alex Inglethorpe.
Was Inglethorpe pre-Tisdale? I'm pretty
Yes,
sure
it was. Yes, it was.
There was that period, right? So, but my very first memories, of my very first game was around the Peter Fox era, and when he was still playing, and then very quickly turned into him, the sort of player manager sort of stint a little bit, right? And then it, I remember Noel Blake then came in a little bit, but that was the kind of era when I first started, going to watch Exeter. My very first game was against Plymouth Argyle, and a friend's dad took me to the game. My dad didn't have that much interest in going, so a friend's dad said, "Look, do you want to come to the Exeter City game?" I've never been to a football game before, and it was a Plymouth Argyle home game, and it was just incredible. I mean, it's so vivid in my my mind of that day and that experience. And just sort of turning up. I went into the old grandstand, which is closest to my house, and just sort of walking into the ground for the very first time, and the atmosphere was just incredible. I distinctly remember chairs being like ripped out and thrown over the side of the fence by the Argyle fans, of course, not by City fans, and just that intense sort of atmosphere and the noise, the smells, the sights, everything. I mean, it was incredible. So I was hooked after that very first game. I was like, this is amazing. I want more of this. And then supported the club right through to when I was until I left for college when I was 16, and then still follow the club very, very closely now.
And I'm going to put some words into your mouth potentially, because prior to recording we just had a 5-10 minute chat, didn't we? And I think I said to you that we were talking about the sellouts.
Yes.
The sellout games and sellout away games. And for the benefit of all, I noted your reaction, and that was like, wow, how things have changed. It wasn't like that in those days, was it?
No. Going to watch Exeter, back then, and especially when we dipped out of the league as well. It was some dark days, I guess, right? And just not the crowds that you want to see and all that kind of stuff. When I went away to college, actually, when I was 16, I actually went to quite a few more away games because I was up in the middle of the country, and then I went to university up in Liverpool and went to a few games up and around there whenever we played. And again, like back then, especially non-league, in the conference back then, we didn't travel with a great deal of fans either, right? It was small, hardcore support, and so it's just incredible. It's incredible. Last year was incredible with the promotion run, and then the team doing it and getting over the line. It was so incredible. And then now watching them in League One, and the crowds selling out, sold out several games this season, which is awesome. And it's really interesting. I've got some brilliant friends back in Chattanooga that support Chattanooga. They're like, you and I, that they're sort of grown up with their club, and that they're all about their club. But then they don't get to experience some of the highs that we get to experience, like promotion. I think that's the biggest difference, right, between the two. And I know I talked about that earlier about how Chattanooga's stuck in that league, but the high of Exeter getting a promotion, and especially as a fan-owned, supporter-owned club getting promotion, I think is even better. And that's why I love Exeter so much. And last year was so special. So love the club.
And so when was the last time you went to a game?
It was back in around November of 2021.
Wow. Oh, not too far ago then.
No, yeah. I was back visiting family, and I think it was an FA trophy, one of the league trophy games. But it was brilliant. It was great. It was the first time, or maybe the second time, I'd been in the new old grandstand. The stand. And that was just brilliant. So good to see that new structure, and
it's just, away end.
Yeah, the weigh-in's looking awesome, and I mean, I just think in general, the fact that there's a screen now at the.
I'm going to say there's a screen up. Yeah.
Park, that's great. But yeah, no, it's. I'm hopefully going to be back in about a month's time, so going to get.
Please message me, look me up, because I'll love to catch up, because this is for the benefit of the podcast. It's the first time we've met sort of face to face, and the connection came because I wrote to FC Chattanooga and asked if somebody could come on. So look, we're sounds like they're in good hands. Exeter, we're getting there. The changes are really starting to tell. I think we're going to have some growing pains, because we probably need to either expand our stadium or I hate to say it, move at some point. But for the minute, it's a good time to be an Exeter fan, and it feels like a good time to be an SC Chattanooga fan as well. So thank you for coming on, and please come back. And as I say, when you come visit, come over and say hello.
Yeah, brilliant. Al, thanks so much for having me, and appreciate you doing this pod. I've been listening since you reached out, so keep up the great work.
Thank you. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, welcome back to Quat Pod. It's episode 5, series 1. And we've got Mick back on this section. Mr. Elusive Mick, how are you? Yeah.
So
you're back. What a character you are. Yeah. Well, I know we'll all laugh about it, but he is going to be involved in these podcasts. He's an absolute character.
me.
We're going to talk about, and he doesn't know this, about FC Chattanooga, which would have been the discussion that we've just had at the start of the show. And we're going to talk about a finance meeting, which the CEO of the club presented to Exeter. But more importantly, he's going to tell us about his little story about Stonehouse Muir and his trip to Scotland. How you doing, Mick? You all right? How did Scotland go?
I'm all right. I'm very curious about this FC Chattanooga.
FC Chattanooga. We'll come to that. But basically, you own 2 football clubs, part share of, and I bet you didn't realise that, did you?
I did not. No.
It's a great news story, by the way.
It's
a great news story, because the guy who interviewed is an Exeter fan, right?
Yeah.
He has gone to America, settled in Tennessee. In Tennessee, sorry. He's helped put a team together since 2009, where they had 1,500 people come to their first game. They play in Coventry-style colours and have sky blue tartan scarves. They're now getting 12,000-15,000 at home, and they operate in the equivalent of League One of the American Pyramid. So we're all safe. They seem to be making some good, profitable money and growing really well. So
Excellent.
What do you think of that?
That sounds great. Out of interest, that's their a new club. Who are the rivals? If you've got any?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I believe they play. I didn't ask that question actually. I think it's clubs like Detroit and places like that. They're not a franchise. So, but yeah, that was one question I didn't ask. I'll ask them next time they come on the show.
I mean, that could be quite interesting, because if it really is Detroit, don't forget that Tennessee is in the south and Detroit's in the north.
Yes.
So there's a several thousand-mile rivalry, which should be quite interesting to actually hear about if it ever gets prevalent, if it becomes quite a nice fixture, so to speak, in their version of the league.
Yeah, I think American soccer, as they refer to it, is slightly different in the fact that they don't have any promotions or relegations.
and they sort of all play the same team. So it's a bit different. Can I just say at this point, there seems to be a little bit of an audio issue. We're going to crack on. I hope everybody bear with it because we're going to be authentic. Anyway, let's go back to Scotland.
Yeah.
You didn't have your car nicked on the way to Scotland. People do know you had your car nicked. Tell us what you did.
What, in Scotland or afterwards?
We'll go Scotland first.
First, right, okay. Well, I've always wanted all my football life to watch the Old Firm derby, and I finally managed to pick up a ticket, which cost me the equivalent of a World Cup ticket, literally.
Wow.
Literally, because what you have to understand, this is a fixture where you can't get an ordinary ticket at all in ordinary means. You just cannot do so. You know, I've tried being a season ticket holder for one season. That was impossible because of a waiting list.
Yeah.
So I had to go by other means, which was via Ticketmaster. And be warned, they're a sort of group that will rip you to shreds financially. But I paid what I had to pay. Went up to Scotland, went to the Old Firm derby. I'll tell you what, it wasn't half good. It was good in atmosphere, very, very dramatic. However, all the violence that we used to hear about, that seems to have gone now.
Right, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah. So that was the 51,000 sellout. I mean, these games always sell out anyway.
Yeah.
When they're as hostile as was led to imagine.
And were you in the Celtic end or the Rangers end?
Rangers.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought everybody thinks you went to Staynesmere.
I did. Yeah.
You did?
To believe it. But there were two Glasgow derbies at the same time. Well, on the same day, rather.
Right.
However, I was meant to be seeing Partick Thistle at Queen's Park. But I didn't realise Queen's Park's ground, where they usually play, which is Little Hampton, we developed. So they're now playing at the moment in Stenhousemuir's ground, which is not far from Falkirk.
Right,
it's about an hour trip. So I went straight from the Old Firm derby to the second Glasgow derby, which wasn't actually in Glasgow. That was near, Stenhousemuir's ground. Now, if you compare the two grounds and the two matches, it's something like David and Goliath.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, Stenhousemuir ground only has, literally two sides.
Yeah.
Yes,
what was the result?
So what was that?
Who scored? What was the result? Who won?
It was 2-0 to Queen's Park.
All right. Okay. And I believe you didn't stay in a hotel. Is that correct?
I didn't. No. My hotel was my car.
So you've driven. You're bonkers. You are. So you've driven all the way up to the West Country to Scotland, and you've slept in your car to go and watch some football.
That's it.
Does that mean, therefore, we can bring it back to? And that's hilarious, by the way. Bringing it back to Exeter, I'm guessing that you didn't stream or attend the finance discussion at the club with the CEO.
I didn't. No. Would you like to tell me more about what actually happened there? What was discussed?
Oh, do you know what? It was really good because they it's taken us a little while. But we are now publishing full accounts. But better than that, and there's a gentleman whose name's gone straight out of my head. A lecturer from Northumbria University, who's a big Carlisle fan, and he came and presented. It's called Mark Midlin, and he presented a document that he's encouraging all football teams to do. And Exeter are one of the first ones. Now, it sounds a bit onerous because it's about 70 pages long. But the interesting thing was that there was some pretty good info. And they're going to send it out to people next week, I believe, once they've finished off a few bits. It's got sustainability and profitability and loads of other stuff. But it's a massive step forward, you'll be pleased to hear. So it's taken a while to get there, Mick, but we'll be able to look to see what's going on.
Brilliant. That sounds good.
And one of the other things that came up was a discussion related to capacity. for the benefit of everybody on the podcast, Mick, you've been a big supporter or promoter of expanding the ground at Exeter, haven't you? Because of our present situation of the ground capacity.
Yeah.
We're even looking at that. What do you think we should do around that? Have you got some ideas related to that?
Well, first of all, I wanted to actually discuss about the possibility of expanding Big Bank, but now that's impossible because of that blooming student lot behind the terrace.
Right.
No. We can't really expand the main stand because there's not enough space.
Yeah.
We could definitely expand the away section by moving the pitch slightly forward.
Yeah, we could. Actually, I've got one to throw at you.
Yeah.
How about we put a new entrance and turnstile in at one end of the away end and enable us to segregate it so that when we have, shall we say, smaller teams coming to visit, we could segregate part of the away end. What do you think to that?
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Yeah. That's a goal for it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that mean that the capacity would actually go down?
I think it would stay the same, but I think you could actually utilize more. But it's like you say, it's something that needs a bit of investigation. The other part would be is to maybe put up a temporary stand, I guess, where what they call, for everybody who doesn't know Exeter, it's called the Jungle Path, and it's a walkway next to our station, and we're a really unusual club. We've got our own station, haven't we? So what do you think about a Jungle Path extension, shall we say?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. And it could be done as well. It's feasible and it shouldn't really cost that much.
Well, yeah, and other clubs do it, don't they? Look at what Bristol Rovers charge for you being in a temporary stand, shall we say? It shouldn't cost a lot to put one of those stands up, I would guess.
Bristol Rovers has to be the most expensive League One ground in the country because Bristol Rovers must be one of the most. Yeah, I mean that was a really expensive ground to attend.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I'm a supporter of 20 plenty. 20 is plenty, but it is expensive up there.
Yeah.
So, although saying that, Exeter is quite expensive, and let's talk about Pompey at the weekend yesterday.
Yeah.
I know you didn't make it, but that was a good price, shall we say? Although we didn't quite get the result we wanted. So,
yeah.
But shame you missed that one. Have you got any more plans for trips, or are you going to stick to Exeter City for the next few weeks or months?
Well, depending on my car situation, I'm hoping to go to places like Fleetwood if I can.
With Exeter,
yeah. I think there's a few others up north that I want to visit as well if I can make it.
Well,
getting all the home matches that I'll be going to because I'm obviously a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
But definitely Fleetwood. I want to attend.
And I'm hoping, and you wouldn't know, that they ask for people to come forward in the fan base to help with certain initiatives. So please have a look out for that. And we've got some interesting shows coming up. And obviously, FC Chattanooga's just broken, and it was quite deliberate to have the conversation with you blind, shall we say? So, because I wouldn't mind betting that the vast majority of Exeter City fans don't even know there's a link. Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
So it's a good one, and I think we should get a. How about this? We could go have a tournament with them. They play. They have a relationship with Wolfsburg in Germany, I believe.
Right. Okay.
Imagine another one, trailblazer, like a Brazil tournament type thing with them playing in Germany and America. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Or even America. for that matter.
Yeah, I think it's on the list for you and me to go to, isn't it?
I'm sure there'll be a few hardy fans like us too that could make the trip to either Tennessee or Wolfsburg.
Yeah, definitely. Look, this is definitely a short one, and I've jumped in a little bit. You're going to come back on there, and we're going to talk some more football various times. One last thing. What's the story in the car getting nicked?
Mate, you just don't want to know.
You just don't want to know. So the benefit of the podcast, it went missing from an airport, I believe.
Well, near the airport, I went away to France recently, and I comes back only to discover where I parked my car near the airport had been stolen.
Yeah.
I had to wait. No, I had to then get a coach to Taunton.
Lovely.
I left them, and then I had to wait 6 hours in the freezing cold for my bus back to my village in Somerset.
Brilliant. And on that downer note, right, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. Let's have a conversation after the next couple of podcasts, yeah?
Absolutely.
And then we'll see where everybody is. City Mick, people get to know you. You're a bit of a legend in Exeter. So
Hello.
Thanks for coming on. Much appreciated. Look after yourself. Get out.
Cheers.
Right, episode 5. This is going to be really short and sweet. A few challenges out there. Let's do the third strip. Let's do a friendly with FC Chattanooga. I know it's America, but we've been further. We've been to Brazil. Please like, share, and subscribe on QuatPod on Twitter and QuatPod on YouTube. Thanks for taking an interest and being part of the community. I look forward to sharing with you episode 6, a really legendary football player. Enjoy. And by the way, football is a beautiful game. Get on, City.